I served 2 tours in Iraq. I put it in quotes because who did I serve? The special interest who wanted war. How did they get that war? They lied to us. They said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and he was tied to 9/11. Both lies, and we all know it now. Years later, of course, after all the damage has been done. The same, I believe, is happening with the Ukrainians. The EU, NATO, the US, they don't give a damn about Ukraine. They're using it as a bulwark against Russia because they have an agenda to take out Vladimir Putin.
Welcome to Redacted Conversations. I'm Clayton Morris. On this show, we invite whistleblowers, we invite thought leaders, we invite journalists on to tell us their story. And our guest today is Lucas Gage. He is a two-time veteran of the Iraq War, twice deployed, came back, found out that he was lied to by his government, and now he's making it a mission to tell the truth about how our government lies to us, and especially about this war that we're currently facing in Ukraine, the NATO-backed war in Ukraine, the NATO-backed proxy war in Ukraine, and how many other proxy wars the United States is involved with around the world. Lucas, welcome to Redacted Conversations.
It's an honor to be here, Clayton. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for your story. I learned about you through a viral video. I think that many people may have learned about you because of that viral video. Just first of all, tell us about that video, and then I want to go back into your history a little bit. This is not new to you, but this sort of unfolded over the past few weeks, right?
Yeah. So I've done activism before in the past, and anti-war for Syria. And when Trump was president, I was telling Trump, don't go to Syria, don't do it, don't bomb anyone, don't fall for the trap. It's the same script, and we'll get into that as well. And so I've done it for years, and then I was like getting the death threats and people hating me, getting called names, certain organizations calling you certain names, and like, you're this, you're that. As we see today, the same thing's happening. So I said, you know what, maybe I'm done for now, and I'm going to just go write books and, make self-help content. And then I was telling my wife a few weeks ago, I said, you know what? I think I have to say something about this war. I'm going to be very neutral. I'm going to say something. I'm going to care about the Ukrainians and the Russian people. And I told one of my friends on Twitter, I said, I got a small account, but maybe we can get this out there. So I told her, and she goes, yeah, I'll help. She has 200,000 followers. So I said, I made the video. She looked at it. This is excellent. So she retweeted it, and then it took off. If you really care about the Ukrainian people like you claim you do, then listen to me very carefully. My name is Lucas Gage. I served 2 tours in Iraq. I put it in quotes because who did I serve? The special interest who wanted war. How did they get that war? They lied to us. They said Saddam had weapons of mass destruction and he was tied to 9/11. Both lies, and we all know it now. Years later, of course, after all the damage has been done. The same, I believe, is happening with the Ukrainians. The EU, NATO, the US, they don't give a damn about Ukraine. They're using it as a bulwark against Russia because they have an agenda to take out Vladimir Putin. And they're saying, look, the Ukrainians are winning the war. They're pushing here and they're pushing there. That's when Putin has his hands tied behind his back in a special operation, which is limited in nature. But now that he's annexed these regions, whether you agree with it or not, Putin can unleash the full military might of Russia. And the Ukrainians have no chance whatsoever. And that's the lie the media is telling you, that they do have a chance. They don't. In fact, the only way Ukraine has a chance against Russia is if they drag us all into the war with them. And you know what that means? World War III. And you know what else? Unlike Saddam, who didn't have weapons of mass destruction, Russia does. And if they're used, it's not good for anybody, especially the Ukrainians, because who do you think are going to be hit first? So if you really care about the Ukrainians, stop filling their heads up with fantasies. Stop believing the obvious lies of the West. My God, the U.S. just threw Ukraine under the bus about this assassination of Dugina. What do you think? They care? They don't care about the Ukrainians. The EU doesn't care, NATO doesn't care, and the United States most certainly doesn't care about Ukraine or anyone else for that matter. The only thing these people care about, these traitors and globalists at the top, are war, profits, and control. That's all they care about. Don't fall for the lies. If you truly care about the Ukrainians and the Russians, especially the civilians, you want to talk peace right now. Let's push for peace, not for war. Because my message was peaceful. It was about, if you care about the Ukrainian people, we have to have peace talks. It's not about arming more people. It's not about more killing. It's about sitting down and talking about peace and being honest. You can't tell me that you think the Ukrainians could win this war, by themselves. They cannot win.
Right.
You got to drag everyone in, and that's going to cause a world war, and it could lead to nuclear war. And so if you care about people, especially the Ukrainians, and I'm trying to defend them as well, you don't want this to continue. So I made that video, went viral, people agreed with it, and here I am again in the geopolitical sphere talking about these things, which I think are important because, as you mentioned, I was a victim of lies of the war in Iraq. We all know no weapons of mass destruction, right? And Bush even jokes about it. Oh, they weren't here. Oh, no, they're not over here either. I don't know if you saw that little joke he made.
Right.
But millions died for this joke, and it's horrible. And we see the same narratives with Syria and all these other wars that are proxy wars that we have seen in our past that are still going on, by the way. And now we have this Ukrainian war, and it's like, when does this ever end? So I had to say something, and therefore I did. And here I am now with you. So.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you spoke out. And first of all, before we get into your time in Iraq, what was the response to this viral video? What did you hear from people? You're simply calling for peace, which is what we do on this show, on our live show every day, but we are advocating for peace, right? What was the response that you received?
Overwhelmingly positive. So most people who are sane were like, yeah, this is right. We got to sit down and talk. We agree with you. Of course, the people calling you Putin fascist, lover, Kremlin shill, bot, even though I'm a real person in video, how can I be a bot? But anyway,
right.
So yeah, but mostly overwhelmingly like 98% positive, 2% negative, like you're a shill, Russia could leave at any time. And most overwhelmingly positive, and that's why it went viral, because it resonated with people. Even if the worst case scenario is true about Ukraine, Russia, people don't want war at all. Especially America, I think we're sick of war, and our leaders just keep causing it and funding it. And we're like, what about us? Our diesels are out of stock is going out. We're having all these problems at home, and you want to fund billions over here? We can't afford things here. What's going on? So I think in general, people have war fatigue, at least in our country.
So you two tours in Iraq. Yeah. When you got in, what was your thought process about joining the military? Why did you want to serve?
Well, I was 17 when 9/11 took place. So I was there when I was actually at the dentist, and I heard the first plane strike. I was like, wow, that's a really bad accident. And I think everyone on the planet thought it was an accident.
Right.
Then the second one hit. I was like, uh-oh. So when I left the dentist, I lived in New Jersey. I still live in New Jersey now, but at the time I lived in Warren, New Jersey. And Warren is pretty high above, I guess, the sea level. So on my way back home from the dentist, I was at high school at the time. I stopped at Washington Rock. It's like this memorial where Washington overlooked to see the British or whatever. And I saw New York from a distance, and I saw all the smoke. I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I went to school. My sister was still at school. I went to go check on her if she's okay. Then I went home and I watched, the towers as they were on fire. I said, this is terrible. And I'm like, what if these things collapse? I have no engineering. I have no idea how it works. And they did. I go, oh my God, all those people died. So at that time, I was like 17. I was like, I have to do something. I got to fight for my country. Now, my grandfather was an Air Force major, intelligence officer. His father was a U.S. Marine. So he fought in the Spanish War and all that. My father skipped it, whatever. But, it's in my blood to fight. It's in my blood to be a patriot. So it's like most people at that time, once we saw the towers collapse, once Bush said, we got to get those terrorists, it was on. And so I was 17. I sought out the recruiters. I said, I want to join now. I said, you can't join now. You have to wait till you're 18. What you can do is do delayed entry program, which is you hang out with the recruiters for a year. It takes a year off of your service after you're done. So you have 4 years active, 4 years reserve. It knocks off one. So I have 7 total. So I did the delayed entry program 4 days after high school, 4 days. Everyone's going to party to the beach, and I went right to boot camp, Parris Island, South Carolina, and then it began my career there. And right after 3 months of that, I came home, took a month off for whatever weeks, engineer school because I was a combat engineer. And then February 14, 2003, my first deployment to Iraq, 5-month tour, and then I came back. And then the same February 14, 2004, OAF 2, and another tour there for 7 months. So I was in Iraq for a total of 1 year, because the Marine Corps doesn't do like 2-year stays like the Army does. So we do shorter deployments. And as a combat engineer, we would do things like mine sweeping, building fortifications. But every Marine's a rifleman. So I did convoy security. We did all that stuff. And thankfully, I didn't kill anyone. I didn't get, none of my friends died. So I was lucky. But I did see death and destruction. I did see civilians and Marines die. And it's a terrible situation. So I wish war on nobody. And that's why this video went viral, because I think people are also sick of seeing this happening to civilians, whether it be Ukrainians, Syrians, or whoever. And, again, I think the world has war fatigue is what I'm thinking, which is a good thing, because we shouldn't have this thirst for war like these warmongers in DC and the EU have for some reason.
Well, of course, it's the military-industrial complex that loves to the endless war, the perpetuation of war for money. So when did it start to unravel for you? Was it during the first tour or the second tour when you started thinking, okay, because here you are on the banks of Washington Rock, looking across, seeing, and I think a lot of us think, oh my God, we got to find out who did this. This is awful.
Right.
You start to peel the onion back, and you start to ask questions. Wait a minute, why are we going into Iraq? Right. Why are we not having discussions with Saudi Arabia? There's a lot of questions you start to peel this onion back. So when did it start to stink to you?
Right. So I was in the Marine Corps from 2002 to 2006. So after my second tour, I have a bad ankle, so my ankle was acting up, and they put me as a MIMS clerk, which is like I would just inventory things, boats and other materials we had at the engineer battalion. And a buddy of mine sent a video, 9/11 loose change. We don't have to get into conspiracy theories, but it was interesting to see and go back to like the towers and like people arguing with Bush and this and that. And what about Saudi? Like you said, what about the Saudi Arabians? They're hijackers. Why aren't we invading Saudi Arabia? Why are we going to Iraq? So a lot of the narrative didn't add up when I watched this video. I'm like, that's interesting. And then I was doing more research about the war itself. And I was sitting there on my computer, because I had a computer all day. And I was looking up Fallujah, which is one of the hardest fights the Marines had. And we were using white phosphorus. I'm like, what? Is that kind of a chemical weapon? Technically, it's not. It's an incendiary. But it burns people when it touches them. It kills them. So that's pretty chemical to me. And I'm looking at these bodies, that are burnt to a crisp. This is a war crime. How are we getting away with this? Aren't we the good guys? And I realized, what if we're not the good guys? So I did more research, said, well, I can't trust my own government. So I realized, and a lot of the guys there, when we were in Iraq, a lot of it was doing nothing. I remember seeing the oil trucks just taking oil, driving by. And we have these mercenaries, Blackwater, doing whatever they want, driving around, Nike shoes, backwards hat, beards. I don't know who they're killing. Totally not accountable, making $120,000 a year while I'm getting paid, I don't know what it is, $1,800 a month at the time, maybe less, plus wartime danger pay. But these guys are making hundreds of thousands to do whatever they want. And we're stealing oil from Iraq. We're doing all these terrible things there. And we got to clean up the mess what these guys are doing, So it just didn't add up even when I was there. I was like, what are we doing here? Like, what's going on with these trucks and stuff like this? And the Iraqis had no chance at all. They were destroyed very quickly, unfortunately for them. And the thing about war, Clayton, is that once you get there, it doesn't matter what the truth is. It's too bad. Like, now I got to survive. So it's either me or you, So that's the tragedy of war. So the Iraqis happen to be the people defending their homeland from us. We're the real insurgents. We were calling them insurgents. You see how crazy this is? They always flip the script. And the victim is the person who's actually being called the terrorist and insurgent and whatever. So it didn't make sense even there. But when I got home and started questioning all these different narratives, going to different loopholes, I'm like, holy God. And then eventually they admitted, oh, no weapons of mass destruction. Oh, okay. So this entire war was based on lies? It's a bad intelligence. Oh, really? So how many of you are accountable? No one was accountable. No one went to jail. No one was fired. Nothing happened. And here we are,
So when you were there, were you aware that this weapons of mass destruction narrative was unraveling? I mean, would you sort of, I'm just curious did you think, oh, we're going to stumble upon these one day? They're telling us they're here, so we're going to find them.
Well, yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, none of us believed that, I was a super patriot back then. I mean, I was even when I got back my first tour, I tried to recruit people from the local community college. I'm like, why are you a warmonger? I'm like, what are you talking? We got to defend our country. I believed hook, line, and sinker. The war on terror was justified. Saddam had to do with 9/11. I believed everything. None of us went there not believing it. Like, oh, this is a lie.
Right.
So we all believed it. And we were waiting to hear about these weapons. Like, we'll find them eventually, That's what I felt. But I was a combat engineer. I was a grunt. I'm on the ground. I'm not an officer. We do what we're told. It's a top down. The military's top down, need to know basis. They're not going to tell me at the time I was a lance corporal anything. You know what I mean? So we're just doing what we have to do. And like I said, I thank God I didn't hurt anyone. I didn't kill anybody. That's the biggest thing that I'm happy about, is that I didn't do that. But the damage has already been done, Clayton. I've seen towns laid to waste. I see what our power can do. Our military is extremely powerful, very powerful mechanisms of force that is really impossible to defeat. I mean, now we have other powers rising, so we have another story there. But yeah, the Iraqis had no chance, and it's just horrific what happened there.
What did you see in the cities there? And I'm curious because we talk about invaders, we talk about, you just mentioned the idea of insurrectionists, et cetera. And we say on the show, I mean, there's no larger invasion body in the world than the United States or NATO going in and laying waste to countries. We see what's happening in Syria. We saw what happens in Iraq. We saw what happens in Afghanistan. So what can you give us some anecdotes or experience about what happened in some of these cities? You mentioned Fallujah, but that you witnessed firsthand to see just the utter destruction of some of these cities and what was happening to the civilians in Iraq.
So I got into the ground war day 3. So that means the troops were already ahead of us. The Air Force already did its bombardments, and we were coming in. So when I got into these cities, they were destroyed. So we'd see civilians waving their white flags, children asking for food, and we would give them food, and then we were told, don't give any more food. Because one kid went to go get food. He was hit by one of the trucks, and he died. So we're like, not supposed to give him food. They were starving. Everything was destroyed. So sometimes you'd see civilians in the ground dead. Other times you could see that one like hole where they throw people in. So it was unfortunate to see this. And also we'd see people captured. It's the first time I saw it when we were getting our mission as combat engineers. There was this Saddam Canal where they blew up the bridges so we couldn't cross. As a combat engineer, we would make medium girder bridges, kind of like these Legos where we build a really big bridge and propel it over the gap, and then we'd have the trucks go over it. And then we'd have the other bridges where IRBs, they're called, where you'd open them up in the water and connect them together over the water. And so we did that. That was our mission. That was our main mission in the first tour. And at that place, everything was destroyed. I remember seeing a civilian just dead on the grass. Some guy certainly wasn't armed with anything, just dead. So it was devastating, and these towns were destroyed. And here we are building this bridge, and I'm hearing firefights across the side. Because again, I was an engineer support battalion. I wasn't in the front, but we were supporting the grunts, the infantry who were in the front. So we'd hear the firefights. And in fact, what I saw in front of me, one of the Marine AVs got hit in front of me, and 3 were killed and 2 were injured. Those are Marines, and I remember this to this day. The voices screaming, because they got hit. So these things would happen. So I was in war, but I didn't personally shoot anyone or get, thank God. But that's what we saw there, Clayton, the devastation, the awesome military power. I remember one time waking up to artillery. We actually slept next to these artillery batteries. It's like 5 a.m. All of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. I was like, what was that? And I saw the artillery round just go, the shell, the bullet just go into the night. I don't know how far it was. They're just shooting into Baghdad, just shooting. And another time I woke up to a Cobra chopper just with the gun, the Gatling gun, just lighting up a truck or something. I mean, it was crazy to see these things. But the civilian population wasn't hostile to us. So even they were kind of like, oh, Saddam, screw him, as long as we gave him food. The kids were nice. I actually played rummy with a kid once. I didn't know what game we were playing. It was a stack of cards, and we were playing. I didn't speak Iraqi or Arabic at the time, and we were just playing with it. He was just a nice kid, and I had my rosary at the time on my jacket, on my flak jacket. He was a Muslim, and I was showing him Jesus, and he's like, oh, yes, just normal people. They have no idea what's going on, and that's the tragedy of the war as well. Maybe they thought we're liberators, or maybe they were just submitting to us because of our military might. Either way, it's a sad thing. But a lot of these people were in completely devastated cities. I remember one time we actually stopped by, and there was a restaurant. It wasn't fully functional, but we would sit there, have pita bread, and we're sitting. The first time I sat on a couch and had a soda in like months, I went without a shower for 30 days straight. And my face was black from the sand. Yeah, I had the marks from the goggles. It was incredible to have a shower. That was the first division. The second tour, I was in Camp Al-Assad. If you remember, when the Iranians retaliated to General Soleimani's strike, they struck the airbase Al-Assad. I was stationed there at my second tour. So that wasn't when they struck it, but I'm saying years before that. There we had KRB, we had steak and lobster, gym. But the first tour was the invasion, where we had nothing. We were sleeping on the ground. We were digging holes to go to the bathroom. But the second tour, we already took over Iraq, and we were just maintaining what we took over. So at that time, the civilian population was decently friendly as well because, they're like, oh, I guess we're occupied. What are they going to do about it? And we were training Iraqi forces. But the first time, again, they had to submit. What could they do? Fight us? So I actually got lucky. One of our Humvees, which I was in, got hit by IED, but it popped. It didn't explode. So we were driving one day and went poof. I'm like, what was that? When the IED people went back, the what do you call it? The EOD. They checked it out. Said, yeah, an IED misfired. Otherwise, you would be dead. I'm like, wow. So that was a miracle. Yeah, for my experience there. So I always tell myself, like, wow, I could have died in this war for nothing. And luckily, none of my friends died. But the third tour, my unit I was getting out. So I did my 4 years. A young kid who's 19, he did die in the third tour that my unit went on. So that was sad. But that's why war is terrible, Clayton. I mean, nobody really wins except the people who want to start the wars. The people like Halliburton and all the military, they're the ones who profit and make money. They win. Everyone else loses. And that's why it's critical that we do this, push for peace for any time they're pushing for war.
So some of these contractors you saw, obviously the BlackRock contractors in Iraq, when Ukraine started to unfold and the invasion happened and Putin was the special military operation to secure the Donbass after 8 years of attacks there, what did you start hearing among your military friends about who was arriving in Ukraine? Because a lot of the question, oh no, there's no boots on the ground from the United States. There's no NATO forces on the ground. It's just Ukrainians fighting for their freedom from the Russians. What did you start hearing about whether it was contractors going to Ukraine? I'm just curious. Take me through that, what you were hearing behind the scenes from your military associates.
Well, for me, like one of my friends, his name is Phil Girardi. I'm not my friend, but he's known in out there, the anti-war voices. And, he writes about many things about people being there already, like the MI6 was probably involved in the bridge. We have contractors already on the ground, no questions about it. So I'm going off what I heard from him, Colonel McGregor, these people as well, because I didn't dive into this war until I made that video. I was like very silent about it. Like, I don't want to get involved with the Ukrainian war, Russia war. It's another problem. And I said to myself, when I told my wife, I have to say something. So now I've been watching your show, other people's show, stuck to it like glue just to see every detail. And it's the same script. So I already know what's going to happen. I can already predict because I've seen it before with Syria. I've seen it before with Iraq, even though I didn't know what was happening in front of my eyes. Now I look back and go, oh, that was what was happening.
Yeah, what is that script? I'm curious.
So the script is simple. There's a red line you can't cross. Let's go with Assad. Okay, Assad's winning the war, right? And then we have these rebels who happen to be ISIS, Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, who apparently blew up the tower. Why are we supporting these people? I don't understand. So these people who make Mortal Kombat HD fatality videos of cutting heads off, killing children, eating hearts, okay, they used chemical weapons 55 times, apparently, according to reports. So here's Assad winning the war, kicking their ass, and he goes, you know what? I'm going to gas my own people. That's right. The narrative. So that's the red line. So here's ISIS and Al-Qaeda. They have an incentive to make this false flag. Oh, if we do this, America will strike and act as our Air Force, which Trump foolishly did 2 times. And so that's why we see the same script here. Oh, they better not use a nuclear weapon in Ukraine, which, of course, the Ukrainians who are losing, they have an incentive to make a false flag so that America or other troops or whoever, I don't know what's going to happen after that. If that happens, I don't know what's going to happen. It gives them incentive to get more support, more money, more everything like Zelensky wants. So anytime there's a military, anytime there's a force that's inferior to a superior force, they have to go to these tactics of setting up, a Bucha war massacre crime. Oh, it's the Russians. It wasn't us. It wasn't Azov that said we'll kill every collaborator that we find. It's not them. It's the Russians. It's just like Syria. Oh, it's not Assad. It's Assad who gassed his own people. It's not us. Not the terrorists who eat hearts and use chemical weapons all the time. So that's the same narrative, and we've seen it before with Iraq, like the propaganda of even the first Gulf War. Oh, they're taking the babies out of the incubators, and that girl was a prince's daughter or something like that, involved in the lies. Right. The same things with Iraq, weapons of mass destruction. He's funding Al Qaeda, all this other stuff. So that's what they do. They lie. Meanwhile, we're the ones fighting, funding Al Qaeda, ISIS, all these agencies connected to dealing with Al-Nusra Front, Al-Qaeda, and all these other, who knows how many are out there actually. But and it's funny enough now, we're seeing, you want to talk about assets, we're seeing them go from Syria to Ukraine. So now we have Al-Qaeda and ISIS going to Ukraine. It's like, what are they doing there? What the hell's going on? So those are our assets moving around. We got these military assets. We don't want to waste them only in Syria. Why not use them in the Ukrainian war too? So that's the same script, Clayton, is that the United States will say something, okay, there's a red line, nobody cross it, and then the people cross it, they blame it Russia, they blame Syria, they blame whoever. And that's the script that we see. So it's the same script, different actors. And it, unfortunately works most of the time. It didn't work in Syria, though, thank God. I think all the activists online at the time diffused that war from really going full-blown war, because Assad is still in power. So he maintained his power. He wasn't kicked out. So I think all of us who were anti-war then did something good, and I think we stopped it because we made everyone see this is ridiculous. What do you mean he gassed his own people? All the evidence is toward these guys who've done it 55 other times. What are you talking about? So I think we need to do the same here with Ukraine. And like I said before, I think people in general are sick of war. We see Macron saying we don't want World War III. I don't know how long the Europeans are going to pay $900 for whatever they're paying over there. And Americans and everyone, they don't even know where Ukraine was just a few months ago. They don't even know how to spell Ukraine. And all of a sudden, everyone's for Ukraine. And if you're not for Ukraine, you're a fascist Putin lover. You got to change your flag. You got to do this. You got to say that. And it's the same thing I've seen before. So, yeah, it's the same script, different actors.
Yeah, and people sadly fall for it because the mainstream media is just an extension of the intelligence state, and they parrot these stories. You saw this unfolding in Ukraine, where you would have a lot of these fake stories, and almost instantaneously, they were all over Reuters, they were all over the Associated Press, they were parroted on the BBC, and these things get out there very, very quickly. And then once you dive into the sourcing on the story, you realize, wait a minute, they didn't have any. As I was speaking to journalists in those towns, like, no, there was no Associated Press reporter even in this town. Where are they getting this information? They're not. It's literally a fabrication, coming out of coming out of the Ukrainian government, and parroting these things. I'm curious what your response has been from some of your military friends, some of the people you served with, or maybe just people you didn't know in the military. When you started speaking out on this, you said it was pretty much overwhelmingly the response was good. Were you having anybody from Washington, anyone saying, "Hey, watch yourself here"? You're overstepping here. You might not want to be telling this story.
No, I don't have any connections to people in Washington, thankfully. But my fellow Marines that served, they all agree with me. This is stupid. Obviously, it's ridiculous. And when I was doing my war activism years ago with the Syrian thing, they agreed as well. I mean, I think people are starting to catch on, thankfully. But at the same time, it seems like other people are not catching on. As you said, there are people out there who believe everything the mainstream media says, no matter what it is, no matter how silly it is, how ridiculous it is. For example, why don't people see this? They say Putin invaded Ukraine to take it all, right? But he's been arguing he wants a buffer state, right? He wants a buffer state. If he takes all of Ukraine, then there's no buffer state. He's right next to NATO. So that narrative is ridiculous, but that's what he's going to take Ukraine, and then he's going to take all of Europe. But his military sucks, so he can't. So which one is it? How can he take all of Europe? And so again, if NATO and the U.S. truly believed it, they would have declared war immediately on Putin. There would have been no proxy war. Oh, we got to stop him now because he's taking over Europe. He's not, and everyone knows it, and the Europeans know it, Brussels knows it, DC knows it. They're just going to use Ukraine to the last Ukrainian. And that's why I was telling in my video, if you truly care about Ukrainian people, listen to me right here. They have no chance of winning on their own. Can they fight? Yeah. Can they sink something? Can they hurt people? Of course. But as the longer the war lasts, the more casualties. The only difference between now and the end of the war is how many people are killed. It's going to end in peace talks no matter how you put it. And people say, well, why didn't Putin just leave? He should just pull his army out. Well, you shouldn't be killing Russians there. Why didn't you protect these Russians? Why were you okay with these ethnic cleansing laws? No Russian, bombing them in the Donbas region. Right. Another thing about the media, Clayton, they start with the invasion. They don't go back in history 8 years ago. And it's funny, there was an article written by Jeffrey Sachs, was it Woke War III? Now it's the left and the neocons together, which is incredible. The left is supposed to be anti-war. We see AOC, we see Ilhan Omar supporting this, but they shouldn't be. They're supposed to be anti-war, but they're not. So the woke left and the neocons are teaming up this war. Unlike the other wars, it was the right and neocon, whatever the case. It's a very incredible shift here, how these people are playing it. And it's because the media has that power, Clayton, to literally manipulate how people see things And they're not being honest with Putin's speeches. You know, I go watch his speeches unedited on YouTube channels, and I see what he's saying. And he's logical. You know, he did a 3-hour Q&A. How long could Biden do a Q&A for? 5 seconds?
Without falling asleep?
Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's incredible.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why we try to play a lot of that context on our show, because people just don't see it in the Western media. Right. They will tell you what Putin said, but they will never show you what he actually said. So we try to, as much as we can, show that on our show. When you see what's happening, because it sounds like it's continuing to ratchet up, it's not ratcheting down at all. In fact, we're talking about this dirty bomb, this false flag. We've seen obviously the 101st Airborne Division. That was a big story last week, being deployed. It seems like, I mean, now we're entering around 100,000 troops now are in the European theater, additional 5,000 with the 101st Airborne Division. It sounds like they absolutely want this to move into full World War III.
You know, and I'm not an expert, you know, military strategic person. I just logically see what's happening. You know, if Putin invades Ukraine like we did Iraq, it's game over for Ukraine. And now he has every right to, because you're doing terrorist attacks. My God, they assassinated Daria Dugin. Okay, this is Alexander Dugin's daughter. He's a philosopher. He's, you know, they say he's influential. People say he's not. He's in Putin's ear. I don't know if that's true or not. But can you imagine, Clayton, if, let's just take Jordan Peterson. He's not American, but he's Canadian. Well-known philosopher. Can you imagine if Russia decided to assassinate his daughter, Mikhaila Peterson, because she said mean things on the internet? Can you imagine this? It would be condemned worldwide. But Daria Dugin, assassinated, car bomb, no one cares. Nord Stream pipeline, nobody cares. The bridge attack, nobody cares. This is literal terrorism. Assassinations, how do people not see that? Maybe they're on the wrong side here of the moral argument, you know? And this is war. It's nasty, but that's why Ukraine can't be winning, because they have to do these horrific techniques and strategies to get their way, including this possible use of a dirty bomb, which should tell you it's not the Russians, because Russia has real nukes. They don't need a dirty bomb. They'll just use a real one. Why would they need to construct a dirty bomb to you know what I mean? It makes, again, another narrative that makes no sense if you look at it.
Yeah, I mean, Nord Stream never, from the moment it happened, we all knew. The Crimea, you know, the Crimean Bridge, you know, there's another one. Oh, yeah, that's just Russia blowing up its own bridge. Okay, here we go. Now now Russia's placing a dirty bomb. Okay, I think anyone with a brain understands that. But of course, the Western media, when you have CNN wall-to-wall coverage, and you know, and people sit there and you know, they go to dinner parties and they say, yeah, can you believe what Putin's doing now? He just blew up his own pipe. He blew up this pipeline to try to get us into further war, and this is the stuff that gets parroted. You know, I know you're not a military strategist, but when these guys have to leave home and they're going to be now they're in theater, or they're next to theater, basically, what's unfolding for these guys right now? Maybe the 101st Airborne Division, but maybe you can speak to some of the other groups that have now been positioned in place.
Yeah, unfortunately, these people, they're going to believe their narrative. I don't think any of these troops are going to go, you know what, I disagree with this, I'm going anyway. Maybe some of them have to do that, but for the most part, when I was in the Marine Corps, I believed the narrative 100%. So these guys coming in from the Airborne Division, these other troops on the ground, even the Ukrainians, they believe they're fighting for their very existence. They're being told this. Russia's going to kill all of you, Putin's going to kill all of you, taking over all of Ukraine. That's what they truly believe. It's not like they don't believe it and go, oh, I just want to kill Russians. Or maybe they do. I don't know if they're crazy. But all of these troops are doing their job. They're getting paid to do it. They're going to go. That's the tragedy again, but they're being lied to. So they're going to go fight. Like I mentioned earlier, even if it was false and all the things are lies, the moment you're in combat, it's not like, well, I was lied to, I can't shoot you. You know, you have to fight. One of you guys are going home in a body bag, unfortunately. So that's the tragedy of this whole thing. And we have to expose the lies so we prevent this from happening. You see what I mean? Because it's like you cross that line of no return. It's too late once they're in theater. So we have to prevent them from getting into theater. So we have Russia. If you look at Russia's side, they truly believe they're under attack. It's an existential threat because NATO wants... They're saying, and by the way, Washington's saying regime change. Washington's saying we got to break this whole thing down. It's not even like it's a conspiracy theory. They're saying it. We should get rid of Putin.
Yeah, Senator Lindsey Graham has said it.
Right.
President Biden has said it, and then he had to walk it back. Adam Kinzinger has said it. So, yeah, you have a number of members. I think you even had Mitch McConnell talking about regime change. Yeah.
Yeah, so when you look at the Russian side, they're literally fighting for their existence. They truly believe they are. And you talk to the conscripts and people there, and they'll say, oh, look at these drunk people. They don't want to go to war. And some of them ran away. There's cowards in every military for sure, of course. But most people are for Putin has how high is his rating? Like 88% or some crazy number like that. When's the last time a president had anything above 30%?
Right. So, and I've spoken to sources who've told me that the recruitment centers, they say, and they're Americans, and they say they live near some of these recruitment centers in Russia. They live in Russia, and they're telling me this, and saying they couldn't believe that there were lines out the door, people waiting to get in. And they couldn't believe, like the Western fake media, that these people are running across the border trying to get away, that they're trying to draft these people. And in fact, the opposite is true. They had to turn people away and shut the door because they had too many people, according to these sources in Russia and who are American sources on this.
And you look at our recruitment numbers, they're down, like below World War II levels, like very bad. Because what are we fighting for? What is America anyway at this point? I argue America's not even a country anymore. But aside from that, you look at the Russian side, they're fighting for their very existence. I believe that's true. And again, when has Putin said, we're going to get all of Ukraine, we're going to wipe them off the map, we're going to take all of Europe, we're going to assassinate Macron? And when has he said this? Nothing like that came out of his mouth. But from the West, we're seeing these crazy things. They're saying it. So the Russians believe it. I'm sure the Ukrainians believe they're fighting for their freedom. But I think they're going to realize, wait a minute, this is getting crazy now. This Zelensky character, I don't know what he's doing. So if anyone's going to get taken out by their people, I think it's going to be Zelensky before Putin, if it ever happens, if you ask me. Because the Europeans, even the Ukrainians, have to come to terms with, this is getting cold here. I don't have electricity. I can't eat. Everything's so much money now. And look, they did this terrorist attack on the ships, which were supplying grain protection for the grain. So why are they attacking these things that are keeping things normal? Why are the Ukrainians doing this? Because it's not really the Ukrainian people doing it. It's the MI6, it's the CIA. They're manipulating these people to do it. So I feel bad for the Ukrainians. And when you say things like that, you're still a Putin shill. You're still a fascist supporter and want to kill everyone. No, I care about the Ukrainian people. And my message was, the only way we stop this conflict is peace talks. And even if you don't like the peace talks, even if you want your 4 regions back, it's better to have 4 regions to argue about than no regions, right? And Putin has to take you all out. Because as J.J. Mersheimer has said, Putin's not going to let Ukraine just sit there and be pro-NATO and anti-Russia. It's just not going to happen. And you ask Americans, what if China put missiles in Mexico or Canada? You're going to let that happen? We have a Monroe Doctrine. It's not going to happen. No way. So why can't Russia protect themselves? You see? So Americans don't even understand this. The Westerners are like, well, who cares? They're evil. That's the media, again, with the double standards. So we have to have empathy for the Russians as well, Clayton. And we don't, because the media's like, he's evil, he's the next Hitler. Everyone's the next Hitler. Putin, Assad, Gaddafi, everyone's Saddam, everyone's Hitler. That's what the media does.
And when you look at NATO and the United States, how many invasions have we had since World War II for regime change? And we're bringing democracy. And of course, we've been covering the story in our show about Haiti and the imminent invasion of Haiti by the United States as well. So again, there's no bigger perpetrators. You mentioned Jeffrey Sachs. There's no bigger perpetrator of violence and unrest than the United States and NATO moving into these areas and destabilizing entire regions. So, it's people who live in glass houses throwing stones, right? Right. Lucas, where can people find more of what you've been doing lately and your wisdom? Based on your service, where are you posting these days, and where can people kind of follow along now that you're back in the fray?
Yeah, I've been dragged in. Lucas Gage 84 at Twitter. That's where I'm at when I do political, I guess geopolitical narratives there. But I have a website, lucasgage.com. I'm an author. I have a book there if you guys want to check it out. But that's where it has all my social media, Instagram even. And YouTube. But I haven't really worked on making videos on YouTube right now. I probably will. But right now, I'm mostly active on Twitter. So lucasgage84 at twitter.com. You'll find me there. And, give me a follow if you like what I'm saying. But I'm trying to push for peace. I'm not trying to pick sides. And I guess that's not good enough for people. So, but any sane person is happy about it. And I'm welcoming anyone who agrees with me to follow me there. And, let's push for peace. That's what's important right now.
Well, we need more voices like that and pushing for peace, and someone obviously who's seen what you've seen and seen the destruction and the death and the war that most people never get to see because we get a sanitized version of it in the Western media. We never get to see what you see, and they don't let us see what you see. So, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us here on the show. We really appreciate your perspective and sharing it with our audience. And hopefully all of you watching right now, you can share this video with someone who maybe is still in the dark, right? That's how we start to shine a light on these topics. Share it, push it out there to other people and help educate the world about this. So there's no reason for this war. There's no reason for any of these civilians to be killed. And that's what we're pushing for. So, Lucas, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Clayton. Thank you.